It's 11:59 at Gun Owners Radio, and this is the Penn Patriot, music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I've got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, and another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind American lines, this is your song.
All right, welcome. We are Gun Owners Radio, and we make activism easy. It is July the 20th, 2025. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for listening to Gun Owners Radio.
Like you, I was tired of feeling like no one's standing up for our Second Amendment rights. So you know what I did? I got involved, and so should you. Try Gun Owners Radio. Gun Owners Radio is your weekly dose of real talk, real solutions, and a community that's fighting back right here in California. We bring you the stories, strategies, and insider info that help you stay informed and make a difference.
If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, do it now. It's free, it helps the cause, and it keeps you in the fight. Remember, together, we win.
Gun Owners Radio comes to you from the studio at Discount Gun Mart. Have you considered becoming a member of Discount Gun Mart? Memberships start off at just $24 per month, and that includes unlimited range use, so check them out. While you're on the internet, go to our website at gunownersradio.com and sign up to get our emails so you know what's happening in the Second Amendment community.
All right, CGF sweepstakes. Every week we bring you CGF's monthly sweepstakes. CGF is the org that took it to a new level with decades of lawsuits behind them and a bright future winning back your gun rights here in California. Go to their websites, make a donation, and you could win a Kel-Tec Sub 2000 GLK. If you don't know, the Sub 2000 is a folding pistol caliber carbine. It folds right in half. The website again is cagunrights.org. All right. Now it's time for my favorite time, Gun Truth of the Week.
The Gun Truth of the Week. All right, your Gun Truth of the Week, a 2013 CDC report, which is the Center for Disease Control, that was commissioned under the Obama administration, concluded that, quote, this is a direct quote, defensive use of guns by crime victims is a common occurrence. Although the exact number remains disputed, almost all national survey estimates indicate that defensive gun uses by victims are at least as common as offensive uses by criminals, end quote. I can guarantee you when this was commissioned by the Obama administration, that was not the statement they were hoping for, but you cannot hide from facts. This supports the principle that responsible gun ownership not only provides a means of personal protection, but also contributes to crime deterrence. Like we've said before, and we will say again and again, get a gun, get training, get a permit, and carry everywhere you possibly can. And that is your Gun Truth of the Week. So we talk about this every week. I think we talk about this every single week. What do you guys think? Are you guys surprised to hear that the CDC under Obama supports everything that we say and work for?
No.
Yeah, it's not surprising, is it? All right, let's move on to the Q&As. You guys have Qs, we have As. We have a couple good questions today.
All right, so the first question we have comes from Vinago, and he's asking about keeping a handgun in your car at all times as if you are transporting it. Now, as far as the law goes, what you're asking here is, and you don't specify, do I have a permit, do I not? So let's talk about it. One thing to keep in mind is transportation is when you are in the vehicle with that firearm. So if you are in the vehicle with the firearm, there's laws about transportation. Now, if you have a permit, the laws are a little bit different, but let's talk about if you don't. If you do not have a CCW and you are transporting your firearm in a vehicle, there's some rules to that. We have California Penal Code 25610 if you want to look it up. And that states the firearm must be first unloaded. It must be in a locked container. And so as far as this firearm goes, now keep in mind, if we put a lock on the gun, because I will tell you, a lot of people come in, I work here at a range, a lot of people will come in and they will have a cable lock through the gun when they take it out to, to get out on the lane and to shoot. A lot of them don't have permits. And a lot of people make this mistake. Putting a lock on the gun prevents function. The law requires you to put it in a locked container, which prevents access. Putting a lock on the gun is not a locked container. So note that if you are transporting your guns, you need to have that gun in a locked container, which means that lock is on the box, the case, the bag, whatever it is, not on the gun. If you want to put a lock on the gun as a secondary measure, you're welcome to do that. But note that the lock on the gun does not keep you compliant in the law. So for transport, the gun must be in a locked container and it must be unloaded. Again, we're speaking to people that don't have a permit. Now, this guy is talking, or Vinago is speaking specifically about keeping them there all the time. I'm assuming you don't live in your vehicle, right? You get out of that vehicle, you go into the 7-Eleven to get a Slurpee. You go to the grocery store. You go into the restaurant to eat. Without a permit, you can't be taking that gun with you. And if you are leaving it in the vehicle unattended, that's no longer transportation. So what's important is that transportation is you are with the gun. When you are not with it, it is unattended. It is now storage. So if you are leaving a firearm in a vehicle and you are not with that firearm any longer, you are now using your vehicle to store your firearm. The law on storage is different, slightly different than it is for transportation. Penal Code, if you want to look it up, 25140 is all about storage. Storage, similar but different to transportation. It's all about preventing theft of guns. I would imagine that a lot of these guns on the streets, illegal guns by felons, people that shouldn't have them, a lot of them come from guns that were stolen from vehicles. So what that states is storage says that we must keep our firearms in a lock, not only in a locked container when we're storing them because we're not with it, but that locked container must be permanently affixed to the vehicle and it must be out of plain sight. So, and I actually want to kind of go back and revisit a point that I forgot about transportation. The law specifically says as far as locked containers, it does allow you to use your trunk if you have a proper trunk, meaning that basically you have no access from the travel cabin side. You would have to get out and walk around. In that case, you can use your trunk as your transportation locked container. The Penal Code also says that your glove box cannot be your locked container. So keep in mind, and I imagine, I don't know specifically why the Penal Code doesn't say why no glove box, but common sense to me states that that's where we keep our documents when we get pulled over. So that makes sense to me. But our storage options are for transportation, locked bag, locked box, proper trunk, right? Storage, locked container, that's permanently affixed. And there's a couple different ways to achieve that. Some are more secure. Some are compliant but not so secure, but they're more affordable. You can get a locking console, you can install an aftermarket or have a custom one done, installed, bolted, welded, however it may be. You can also go and get a lot of companies, like Hornady makes the Snap Safe, a lot of companies make these that have a cable lock that attaches, and you can detach that cable lock around where the seat anchors and connects to the frame of the vehicle. Not the most secure thing. Anybody with good wire cutters can get that off, but it technically is compliant. It's permanently affixed. So I hope that helps. All right. So for transportation,
I think that's
container,
perfect.
unloaded.
I think we
Right?
did a fantastic job. You did a fantastic job. That's very thorough and very, very well done. Okay. Well, next question. What's the next question we got?
All right, our second question is, can an out-of-state relative sell me their off-roster pistol as a private party transfer into California? So there's a few things here. There is something in the law, in the Penal Code for California, that is called, the section is called exceptions to the requirement of using a dealer for a private party transfer. So the exceptions are super clear and they're very specific. One of them is that it has to be immediate family, and the law actually defines what they mean by immediate family. They mean mother, father to a daughter or son, or they mean a grandmother or grandfather to a granddaughter or grandson. So that's it. There's no lateral. It can't be your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, your cousin. It has to be kind of directly up and down in that, genealogy. So the rules are very specific, but you are allowed to accept a transfer of a firearm by gift or even sale, as long as it's between members of that same immediate family as the law defines it, and the transfer has to be infrequent. So I think the rule of thumb is 6 or less per year. And then it also goes through kind of all of the requirements that you have to meet after the fact. So let's say that you were to get a gift from your father of an off-roster handgun, and you were to bring it back with you when you come back to the state of California. Well, you have to report that to the Department of Justice via a form that is called an intrafamilial transfer form. So it's I believe it's BOF 1033, but I'd have to check on that. But you can go to the Department of Justice website and pull up that form and fill it out. It's only $19, and you can do more than one firearm at a time. So let's say that your father was going to gift you a bunch of firearms from his collection. You can list them all on there, and you only pay the $19 once. But that is kind of the general process. It's a pretty simple process. It's actually called the BOF 4. Oh. Why
It's
is
4544A.
4544A? Thank you. So BOF 4544A, and it's that intrafamilial firearm transaction form. So $19, you put your information, your ID, you let them know that you're a resident of the state of California, and you list out all the information about the firearms that you're bringing in. Now, let's say that you have somebody who's not a relative and you wanted to buy their firearm. You would have to go just like normal through an FFL. So California does allow you to buy a firearm out of state, but it has to be a firearm that a California FFL could sell you. So it has to meet all of those same requirements as if you were buying the gun in California. So think about, if you go to your local FFL and you see all of the firearms that are available for sale there, those are the same guns that you would be able to purchase elsewhere and have sent to the FFL. But it has to go from whatever FFL in the other state to the FFL in California. So it's an FFL to an FFL transfer. And that's a little bit trickier. You'd have to go through the 10-day wait. You need to, do all of the paperwork at the FFL that is accepting the firearm on your behalf. And there's usually a fee associated with that transfer.
That's one thing I want to point out. And I'm not an attorney. This is not legal advice. None of us are attorneys. None of this is legal advice. But my understanding is that the 6 firearm limit that you referenced, that's not written anywhere. That came from a court case where basically what happened is there were a number of people, including law enforcement officers, that were basically their side hustle was to do these off-roster transfers, these private party transfers. And the court basically said, hey, look, if you're doing more than 6, which was they kind of picked that number out of thin air, but they basically said it's reasonable to say if you're doing more than 6 a year, that makes you a dealer at that point. And if you are a dealer and now you're dealing firearms and you're not licensed, that is a whole new world of hurt you're in. And people have done jail time and become prohibited persons because of that. And the reason I wanted to go into that is if you look at this law or this guidance and think to yourself, well, heck, I'll just do 6 every year and I'll make a couple of bucks and everything's good to go. This is really, truly intended to be a true inter-family transfer. It's really intended for someone who lives outside of the state, who's a family member, who says, gee, I want to get this firearm to, my linear relative. It really isn't intended for commerce. So if you do decide, well, gee, the court says I can do 6, I'll do 6. I'll make my living or a couple extra bucks by just doing 6 a year, and I'm good to go. If it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck and it quacks and it has a beak, it's a duck. So I would, from experience, not because I'm a legal professional, I would caution people to don't play loose with these laws and don't try to get one over on the government. They will come down on you like a ton of bricks. I don't agree with what's going on. I certainly don't agree with the law. What I'm telling you is the experience I've had with people who decided that they were going to be smarter than the rest of us and that they were going to kind of skirt the law or play fast and loose with with the letter of the law or the spirit of the law. So don't abuse it. Don't think, well, gee, I'm going to get around it this way, or I'm going to comply, but it's not really what they intended, and I'm smarter than everybody else. They're really, really using this law to go after sane, trained, law-abiding gun owners, people that aren't intending to do anything illegal. So again, ATF and certainly the firearms division of California DOJ, they are predatory. They're coming for you. So be cautious. Use this information for what it's intended to be used for.
Yeah, one thing there, and you're completely right with what you're saying as far as the way that 6 gun rule came into effect. But after that court case, they actually did put it in the penal code in California. So it is actually written now, I think, as of like 2020. And they specify that it's actually 6 transactions per year. And a transaction can have multiple guns listed on it because the transaction is each form. So, for example, if you were to get, an inheritance, say somebody in your family passes away and they are going to, bequeath you dozens of firearms, you're allowed to take possession of all of those. It's not limited to just 6 firearms, but that would be one of your 6 transactions for the year, is that whole entire, I guess that's called there's a word for that, inheritance, right? So that inheritance that you received, that would be one transaction. But it does specify that the total quantity of firearms can't exceed 50 per calendar year. And that's all in the penal code, section 16730. But that's something that reminded me, Mike, your point about how often the laws are changing and that the government will come after you for things. The actual penal code as it's written in the California law is Article 6. The penal code number is 27875. And I would encourage you, if you're interested in this at all, or you think you might do one of these transfers, read that entire section, because there are discrepancies between what's actually written in the law and what the Department of Justice and the Attorney General have written on the website. So if you go to their webpage and you read the FAQs about interfamilial transfers, they have added things in there that are not even in the penal code. So definitely read the actual penal code, because that's what you would be held up to if you were to get charged with a crime.
Good. That's good additional info. And like I said, it's totally important. The broader point that I wanted to make is that just don't think this is going to be a side hustle, or that you're going to be able to make some extra bucks. That's not the intention of what's going on here. And it's so horribly written, like you say, Dakota. It's so convoluted that, oh man, I mean, they're just bear traps waiting to happen. So those are your Q's and A's, and that is actually a perfect transition. We're going to go ahead and transition directly to a Firearms Policy Coalition, soon to be victory. The Firearms Policy Coalition, FPC, moves to strike down the ban on interstate handgun sales. They've been talking about this for a while, but there's been a little bit of movement, and we're very, very excited. I just wanted to touch on it and make everybody aware. Fort Worth, Texas, July 15th, 2025, FPC puts out a statement that says, as part of its ongoing mission to ensure individuals can exercise their right to keep and bear arms throughout the United States, FPC announced that it has filed a motion for summary judgment in the case of Elite Precision Customs versus ATF. At issue in FPC's lawsuit are federal laws that ban licensed firearm dealers from selling handguns to buyers who live in another state. That, FPC says, is unconstitutional. And the quote from FPC President Brandon Combs is, just like we recently secured a summary judgment order striking down California's unconstitutional ban on firearm carry by non-residents, we intend to end this similarly unconstitutional federal ban on firearm purchases by non-residents. Our many victories for the people of the United States and our members clearly show that the right to keep and bear arms unquestionably exists throughout the United States. We're proud to continue eliminating laws to prevent you from exercising your right to purchase and carry firearms for lawful purposes when, where, and how you choose. This is huge. And FPC, we just can't say thank you enough to FPC. They're one of the leaders. They're a fantastic group. They continue to file. They continue to fight. They continue to win. But it doesn't make any sense. You know, what Dakota and I were just talking about as far as interfamilial transfers and the roster and handguns and what living out of state and all this stuff. No one's any safer because of these laws. You know, this is completely insulting. It's just a bunch of bear traps that are the California DOJ can't even determine. They can't even get it right on their website, and they're expecting us to do it right or go to jail. You know, and again, meanwhile, who's safer? You know, who's being made safer in 2025 by not allowing me to purchase, you know, a self-defense product, the most effective self-defense product ever invented from another state? Who's being made safer? Because I can only purchase firearms in the state of California, or if I want to receive the gift of a firearm from an out-of-state relative, I have to, you know, jump through some hoops and do all this ridiculousness. So FPC is doing their work, doing a fantastic job. The brief can be viewed at firearmspolicy.org/elite precision. I highly recommend that you check out the brief and that you look at their case. But if successful, and it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of money to see this thing through, but if successful, this will get rid of a lot of the silliness that we're having to deal with. And it can almost be seen as a workaround, maybe, you know, for when it comes to this handgun roster silliness, or at least another nail in the coffin of getting rid of that completely unconstitutional, completely ridiculous, safe handgun roster that California has to put up with. So thank you so much, FPC, for doing the work that you do. So what do you guys think of their lawsuit?
I think it's great. I mean, I've always wondered how this is legal. You know, it feels like it's a direct ban on, you know, like interstate commerce. And, you know, it's always been very interesting to me that the government can get away with saying, yeah, you actually can't do business in other states in this one area. It's like, I should be able to do business anywhere I want to do business. I should be able to buy something anywhere I want to buy something. So it's a good lawsuit.
I just want to say thank you.
Well, you're right. The commerce. Well, I'm sorry. I was just real quick. The commerce clause isn't there. You know, they didn't say, hey, we need this commerce clause so we can stop interstate commerce. You know, that wasn't the purpose of it.
Yeah.
It wasn't. You don't
exactly.
build a freeway. You don't say, hey, you know what? We need to build a freeway so we can stop travel. You know,
Right.
So, you know, it completely contradicts the purpose of the federal commerce clause. They should be helping to make a market, not helping to shut one down. But I'm sorry, Alicia, I cut you off. Go for it.
No, I absolutely agree. And my comment was just simply, I just wanted to say thank you to Firearms Policy Coalition for taking the time and the effort and putting the money into this.
Absolutely. Hey, I wanted to go back. We had one more question, and I just wanted to touch on it. It's kind of a difficult question to answer, but we're going to do our best. So we talked about getting your FFL 03 and your COE, which is your Curios and Relics license. We talked about that last week.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, if you go to gunownersradio.com, we actually have a step-by-step guide on how to get your FFL 03 and COE, or basically your Curios and Relics. And that helps you collect older firearms. It helps you, it's got some fringe benefits like being able to order ammunition and have it sent right to your front door rather than having to go through a gun shop. So, you know, it's kind of cool. It's kind of a neat thing. It's not a full-fledged FFL. Like if you're going to set up a shop or a range and, you know, you need an FFL, this isn't that. It is a different version of an FFL that has a more specific purpose. So a guy named Mike Brumbelow 3245 asks, what are the tax implications with having both FFL 03 and COE? Broad question. I'm not quite sure what they're asking, but let me keep going. If you decide to sell an antique you've had for a while, is there an advantage to having both? Can you just get a COE so you can have ammo shipped directly to you? Again, how are the taxes on the purchases handled? So the first question about the taxes, I'm going to assume he's talking about the tax that you have to pay when you purchase. And I'm going to be honest, I thought about doing a real thorough answer on that. And really, the answer is that we're on the internet, which means that all 50 states could be watching us. And there's no way for me to answer that thoroughly enough. So what I will say is that you have to be mindful. You have to understand. You have to abide by whatever local, state, federal taxes exist. I'm not aware that this is a workaround or an exemption from having to pay any taxes, but that is going to vary from municipality, from county to county, from state to state. So you have to be aware of that. Now, the other question is, if let's see, can you just get a COE and have ammo shipped directly to you? My understanding is the answer to that is no. I can't find anywhere that says if you only have a COE, you can receive ammunition directly at your doorstep. You have to have the CNR or what's called the FFL 03 and the COE in order to do that. You guys, any corrections on that, Dakota or Alicia? I couldn't find anything that said anything other than that, but I'm open to being corrected.
No, you're absolutely correct. As far as the COE goes, you have no benefits in that, so that's an absolutely no go. And as far as the tax goes, absolutely, you got to abide by all the state rules.
Death and taxes. That's how they get you.
Death by taxes.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, cool. All right. So now you know some of the questions and some of the answers. We did things in a little bit different order, but I think it's an order that makes sense because it kind of flows and they're all sort of connected. So now that you know what is going on, what can you do to help get things changed for the better? So I want to do our deployment segment, which is sponsored by SageTree, sagetree.com. For all your digital marketing needs, if you want to reach out to the Second Amendment community, if you want to make sure that your online presence is effective for your business, if you want to redo your website and make sure that people understand who you are, what you do, and why they should do business with you, go to sagetree.com. They'll help you out. We use them. You should too. Okay, so we got a bunch of things to talk about as far as being involved. I want to start out, we talk about this every week, the tabletops and shooting socials. That's kind of our bread and butter for here down in San Diego on how to get involved. We have tabletops at just almost every weekend. I think just about every weekend. Every Saturday, there's a tabletop somewhere in San Diego County. Most of them are at gun shops, but not necessarily all of them. And the purpose of a tabletop is to get people involved. Maybe it's as simple as, hey, you should check out our email list and start receiving our information so you know what's going on and how to be involved. But sometimes it's more than that. Sometimes it's, what lawsuits are we being involved with? How can I get involved? How can I get my CCW? So it's really effective. It really is helpful. You'll get a cool free t-shirt. So if you could, check out our link and sign up for a tabletop when is available or when you are available to do that. Our shooting socials, everybody loves our shooting socials, but we definitely need help. Shooting socials are educational. They're designed for first-time shooters. We've had over 10,000 people in our history go through a shooting social, over 10,000. And it's always been a great experience. It's designed for somebody who has almost no or absolutely no experience with firearms. This is a first-time shooting experience with an experienced gun owner, someone that will stand there with you and show you how to use a firearm, they'll keep you safe. It's not a substitute for a class. It's just an intro to. We highly encourage you that, hey, if you liked this intro, you should take a half-day class, take a full-day class, or take a multi-day class with a professional instructor. This is just designed to take some of the questions and some of the mystery out of it and have you have a really cool, fun first-time experience. So go to our website, sdcgo.org/volunteer, and get involved. Okay, we have an intro to modern off-grid communications. That's happening July 26th. This is it. This is your last chance to get involved because that is right around the corner. This is part of being a prepared protector, being an asset to your family and your community. And when disaster strikes, communication is one of the first things that goes down. So learn to stay connected and informed. Register for the Modern Off-Grid Communications class at gunownersradio.com. Go to our website today, register, and take the class. We also have a Prepared Protector First Aid for Gun Owners class. That's August 23rd. Plenty of time for you to sign up, but it will fill up, so sign up now. That's going to happen in El Cajon at Cargo in their training room. Price is $281. You get a really cool first aid kit with that. So take the class, get the training, get the gear, get the confidence, knowing that you're prepared by taking this first aid for gun owners class, August 23rd. Again, go to gunownersradio.com to sign up for that. And then way off in the future, but right around the corner, is Masad Ayub. He's returning in September 4 and 5. You got a live fire class at Lemon Grove Rod and Gun Club. We got so many people who came up to us after last class last year and said, I wanted to shoot with Masad Ayub, but it was already full. Well, if you wait too long, you will miss out. So sign up today. Do everything you can to sign up today. Make sure your calendar's clear and sign up today. September 6th and 7th is the classroom. That's going to be here in San Diego. The location is yet to be finalized, but it will be at a nice central location here in San Diego. The live fire class is $620, which is frankly a steal. And the classroom, it's a 2-day class. Classroom 2-day class is $500. And we're also going to have a dinner on September 3rd. The details will be finalized, so save the date. Okay, so there is one thing I wanted to spend a little bit of time on. August 6th at 6 p.m., San Diego County Gun Owners is having a mayoral summer summit. And what we've done is we have 4 pro-Second Amendment mayors from the San Diego area, 4 different cities, the mayor of Carlsbad, the mayor of Vista, the mayor of Escondido, and the mayor of El Cajon. They're all going to come and do a Q&A and a presentation. You're going to get to talk to them face-to-face. You're going to get to ask them questions. They're going to talk about the Second Amendment, but they're going to talk about even more than that. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's our mayoral summer summit on August 6th at 6 p.m. It is off Claremont Mesa. All the details are provided. If you go to san diego county gun owners.com or sdcgo.org. Why is it important for you to show up to this? So these are pro-Second Amendment elected officials right here in your community. It is important that we show them, hey, gun owners are involved. If there is a pro-Second Amendment elected official who is coming to talk to the community, we want them to see a sea of pro-Second Amendment people in the audience. We don't want to send the message that, gun owners don't show up. Not a big deal. It's about more than gun ownership. It's about more than Second Amendment. It's about politics. It's about showing up. Easy day. All you do is show up. All you do is buy a ticket for $20. You show up. Food is provided. You get to meet each mayor. You get to meet other people that are interested in the Second Amendment, and you're going to get some really great information. You're going to get a really great presentation, but we need you to show up. There are a lot of tickets left for sale. Buy now. Go to sdcgo.org. Go to sdcgo.org and buy your $20 ticket right now. So easy to do. Such a great value, but we need you to show up. So come to our mayoral summer summit on August 6th, 6 p.m. at Elijah's in their banquet room off of Claremont Mesa. Sign up today.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, you're coming, aren't you?
I'll be there. Yep.
Okay. Our next guest is Joe Leaporto. Joe is a passionate grassroots activist. He's a freelance writer and a speaker. He's actually testified numerous times before the New Jersey legislature He's written articles and policy papers on a variety of Second Amendment, civil liberties, and civil rights issues, and is a regular guest on Gun for Hire Radio. He is a director of the Civil Liberties Policy Research Center in New Jersey, and that is a state-level think tank out in New Jersey. He's a member of the National Rifle Association. He's a life member of the Second Amendment Foundation and a member of the Federalist Society. He's a lifelong resident of New Jersey, which you'll see by his accent when we have him on. And he's a graduate of St. Peter's University and Seton Hall University School of Law. He lives with his wife and 4 children in the beautiful state of New Jersey. Joe, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here and join you for this episode.
Absolutely. So talk a little bit about the kind of advocacy work that you do in New Jersey, which, by the way, for those who don't know, New Jersey and California are in a neck-to-neck tie in a race for being the worst Second Amendment states in the union. So I know you have a lot of work that you do. So describe some of the work that you do in New Jersey.
Yeah, I serve as the Director of Legal Operations for New Jersey Firearm Owners Syndicate. We are a 501c4 nonprofit, so that allows us to, engage in a broad sweep of activism, both, in terms of litigation and court, which many groups are involved in, but that also allows us to engage in certain political activity as it relates to things like lobbying at the state and other levels. And we'll talk a little later, but we get as deep into the trenches as we can around here. So that's our group. We're running the gambit as far as the types of advocacy work that we can do inside the state of New Jersey. Here, deep behind enemy lines.
Deep behind enemy lines. I know that feeling. And one of the things, we've actually talked a little bit about this. We've touched on it with Joe Petrolino John Petrolino. But Joe, you guys are working on there's a fee scam that you guys just helped reverse in a section of New Jersey. Talk about that. Touch on that, and where are we with that, and just tell us a little bit about that victory.
Yeah, so that's an interesting project that we're working on. It's one I'm glad we're having this conversation, because we absolutely envisioned when we started this project that this would be something that we would export to other states in a similar situation. And California is absolutely one of those states that we ultimately want to influence on this. As you know, there's lots of different areas of gun control that are being litigated in various, stages and across the United States in almost every district, in almost every circuit court. An area that is getting increasing attention is fees and taxes on a right. There's a lot of case law out there that deals with, let's say, First Amendment rights, taxes on, let's say, ink and paper in the newspaper industry, taxes on religious items. These are well-trotted cases that have, there's a long-standing tradition of binding precedent on those topics, and it's pretty clear through the majority of that the courts almost universally reject the idea that taxes can be applied to a constitutional right. Similarly, poll taxes and voting, uniformly rejected by courts for over a century. So the question is, how do we get a similar result on the Second Amendment? The Bruin Court made it clear that the Second Amendment is not a second-class right and should be treated the same as all other core fundamental rights. So we're driving towards that end goal of getting broad declaratory relief on the question of whether or not you can apply high fees as a barrier to exercising a core right, namely the right to keep and bear arms. But in the interest of advancing the ball, we saw a unique opportunity. Now, the way that the state of New Jersey structures things, and it's a little unique vis-a-vis other states, we have a state-level statute that sets a statutory fee for the application of for a concealed carry permit, amongst other firearms-related licenses and permits. But in the wake of the Bruin decision, New Jersey, sort of having a temper tantrum, decided that, well, if we have to start issuing them, then we're going to just make this process as difficult as possible. So they took what was already a pretty high fee for what, many states would charge for a concealed carry permit. It was about $50 prior to the change in the law in December of 2022, and they increased it to $200. And they made that a statewide mandate. But the way that they structured things here was they parsed it out in the statute and said the state police is going to provide some infrastructure for the processing of these applications. And so a portion of this is going to remain at the state level. So they allocated $50 of that fee to the state. And then they mandate this $150 local permit fee that gets paid to the issuing department. In New Jersey, you would apply to your local police department in order to obtain a permit. So it requires that local police department collect the $150 fee. So we saw that as an opportunity because essentially once that $150 fee hits the municipal coffers, it's up to the municipality to do with their money what they choose to. They have full discretion over their budgets and how they choose to do things vis-a-vis their residents. So, and John Petrolino was a driving force behind this too. I need to give full credit to him, and then that sort of starts to tie in some of the bigger groups that we worked with on this. But we were ultimately able to go before the Englishtown Mayor and Council in Monmouth County and get them to pass a resolution that would fully refund the municipal portion of the fee. So now an applicant in Englishtown pays that $150 as per the state statute, and the moment that application fee is paid, he can then go over to town hall and get a refund. He or she can get that money refunded back. The full $150 can be sent back. Now, obviously, the goal,
which is amazing.
Yeah,
that's an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah. Englishtown is a small town in Monmouth County, but the goal was certainly not to end it there. So, we got that done roughly a little over a month ago in Englishtown. And in the intervening weeks, we've already gotten 3 other towns to pass the same resolution. Now we got 500 plus municipalities in New Jersey, so we know we got a lot of work ahead of us. But as of today, if we just add up what we've done in just 4 municipalities, we've already deleted about $50,000 per year in unconstitutional permitting fees.
That's phenomenal. That's really, really amazing. If somebody, I've compared, these high costs to getting a carry permit to poll taxes in the past. Is there an argument to be made that it's hyperbole to compare those two?
No,
if I'm playing devil's advocate, is there any case to be made that it's not quite the same, or it's not really as severe, or what are your thoughts on that?
No, the logic behind that is the same. If we take core constitutional rights and we hide them behind a paywall, essentially, then that produces a disparate outcome, and it discriminates against people on the basis of their ability to pay a fee. And it's pretty clear that it's expressed in the 14th Amendment that everyone is entitled to equal protection under the law. When you have a constitutional right to something, a guaranteed right to something, the government can't hide it behind a cost prohibitive paywall. And this goes all the way back. Chief Justice John Marshall said in 1819 that the power to tax is the power to destroy. So we have a long-standing tradition that these core rights can't be subjected to these things. It's just, it's novel as it relates to the Second Amendment because it was only, fairly recently, McDonald was only, 15 years ago, that the Second Amendment was deemed to be, not just an individual right, but applied to the states. So we're in a relatively short window here where we have a much broader interpretation and understanding of the Second Amendment. So now we just need the courts to catch up on this issue too. Again, Brewer makes this clear.
I agree. One thing I want to point out about this victory, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding of this victory, gun advocates, we tend to focus on lawsuits a lot, and lawsuits are crucial. They're important. But I think it's one thing that I'm trying to emphasize and bring back and show the importance of, And one thing I think we've lost is, grassroots advocacy. And this victory wasn't a judge, making a ruling, in a $1 million lawsuit. This was grassroots advocacy. It was getting the right person elected, holding them accountable, or basically educating them and saying, hey, look at what's going on. It's not right. Here's why. We got you elected for a reason. And that these results are because of that. Am I right about that?
Absolutely. I mean, we're not naive. In the long run, in order to get relief for every resident in the state, we're going to ultimately have to go to court on this. But as I said, we got that first slug that so far 50,000 per year deleted without spending a single dime on lawyers or lawsuits. And that's just through sort of grassroots advocacy work and burning some shoe leather. I've personally been traipsing up and down the state, going to town council meetings and just essentially asking nicely. Now, again, could we possibly get to 500 plus towns in New Jersey to all uniformly reject that? I think it's unlikely. We're probably going to get towns that are reticent to do this or just not politically aligned on the issue. And the goal is not to overpromise on this, but let's just put it this way. If we got even 10% of the state of New Jersey to uniformly reject these fees on the basis that they're unconstitutional, that is going to be persuasive information to courts and lawmakers. And that was, again, accomplished with nothing more than some shoe leather and some sweat equity and some effort. We pulled in big national partners along with this. The NRA has expressly joined our effort. We're signing a joint letter with the NRA along with the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms. Alan Gottlieb has taken a deep personal interest in this as well, and it's been a coordinated effort across both our state level group, but with some big resources from our national partners on this. There's a reason why people are interested in this, because this is a way to crack this egg.
Phenomenal. Awesome job. Thank you for the update on that, Joe. So talk about Free Tate. I've seen Free Tate across the internet. I'll be honest with you, I haven't looked into it very deeply. And when you and I were talking about, when we were discussing you coming on today, you said it was one thing you really wanted to talk about. So I'm really excited to hear, what exactly does that mean? What is Free Tate? Who's Tate? And what's being done, and where are we at with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long story, and I would if your listeners really want to get deep in the weeds on the entire backstory here, I would invite them to check out the SAF Journalism Project section of the website and look for Lee Williams' coverage on this issue. At this point, he's written close to 20 articles over the last year covering every single nuanced little bit of this. But in its simplest terms, in 2022, this is in the era of the Biden ATF that was interpreting everything under the sun as a frame of receiver, where through the stroke of a pen, the ATF was just redefining everything and deciding what was legal or illegal on the spot, literally making gun owners, criminals overnight. Tate Adamiak was a 10-year Navy veteran. He was an active sailor. He was an E6 Master at Arms in the Navy, which is the equivalent of the Navy's version of an MP. He was in the process of receiving a commission, which means he was going to be made a naval officer, and he was on his way to, I think he was in the first phase of BUDS, which is the training one undergoes to become a Navy SEAL. So this is a highly decorated Navy sailor with an impeccable record, who just happened to, in his spare time, have a hobby collecting, relatively esoteric firearms parts. He was collecting military collectible items. He had a gun broker account and had a fairly active account where he was buying and selling things that had, collector value, essentially. He was not selling firearms. He was not trading in anything that was inherently illegal or regulated by either the ATF or local law enforcement. Nonetheless, because he had a fairly active gun broker account, he had found himself being targeted by the ATF, who suspected that he was selling illegal firearms. They then subsequently utilized a confidential informant, a paid confidential informant, to try to coax Tate into engaging in some form of illegal transaction. And when he refused to do so, the ATF threw in the towel and just decided to raid his home. In his home, they found, if you look through the detailed listing of everything that the ATF sees in that case, every single item today could be readily acquired on a platform like Gunbroker, or in some cases eBay, and shipped directly to your front door. There was never a point at which those items were technically illegal or regulated the way that the ATF said that they were. Nonetheless, he was convicted at trial after some of his expert testimony was ultimately suppressed by the Department of Justice. Oh, sorry, I got some animals going crazy over here. So his case was railroaded at trial, and he was subsequently sentenced to 20 years in jail. He has now been made essentially a permanent resident of the state of New Jersey. And we just saw this as an opportunity to do something about that. He's being housed at FCI Fort Dix. And again, we wanted to use our sort of grassroots platform to elevate his case a little bit. So we reached out to Lee Williams, and we've been in close contact with both his father and a collection of volunteers that have been working on elevating his case in terms of publicity to get folks to pay more attention to it. It ties very closely to our broader grassroots effort. This year, we partnered with Early Vote Action, which is an organization that was started by a gentleman named Scott Pressler. He was instrumental in flipping the state of Pennsylvania for Donald Trump in 2024. So throughout the year, we have been manning FFLs and gun shops up and down the state, trying to get folks registered to vote and committed to voting in our fall election this year. We have a gubernatorial race this year. New Jersey is a little bit of a weird state in the sense that we have elections in the off years, which means we have an election every year in the state of New Jersey. But since we were doing this sort of big effort out there trying to get folks to register to vote, and we were sitting in these shops and in these ranges anyway, we saw this as an opportunity to broaden our platform and get involved with this case. It's an important issue, and one that we really want to bring to light, because it while what happened at Tate is terrible, I mean, he is the bright shining example of somebody who was completely innocent and yet targeted and made a victim by the ATF in a period of time when that ATF was a rogue agent for a gun control agenda that just stretches into pure politics and has nothing to do.
I've said it before. I'll say it again, loudly and proudly. The ATF is a predatory agency, period. And I am excited to see that the Trump administration seems to be doing something. Jury's still out as to how effective what they're doing to the ATF will be. But they're a predatory agency. They shouldn't exist. They certainly shouldn't have the power to do what they're doing. They're horrible here in California. They're absolutely horrible, especially in Southern California. And, we've called out individual leaders in the ATF here before and asked that they get fired because they're not supporting the Constitution. They're absolutely a predatory agency against gun owners, not just illegal gun owners or criminal gun owners. I'm talking about, everyday, Joe Lunchbox, Jane Lunchbox gun owners. The ATF is a predatory agency. What are your thoughts on the future as far as ATF? Not even specifically this case, but what are your thoughts on the future of ATF and everything that's been going on in the Department of Justice?
Well, I mean, as you say, there's some really, really hopeful things that are coming out of the Trump administration right now. I mean, the latest, sort of proposals with the appropriations bill, slashing the ATF's budget and cutting their staff would be a huge step in the right direction. Ultimately, I think that agency needs, some pure, top-down regulatory reform. At some level, look, as gun owners, we need an agency that can handle certain aspects of the firearms industry as it relates to things like importing firearms, licensing dealers and allowing for interstate commerce. Like there's some necessity for some amount of a regulatory framework for that. But where the ATF goes off the rails is their sort of enforcement division. It's like one of those, if all you have is a hammer, every problem is a nail situation. You have this tool and they want to use it. They want to target people. They want to demonstrate to the public that they're doing something. I've yet to see an instance where the ATF has made some major, progress on, let's say, illegal gun trafficking. We only ever hear about these kinds of stories. I mean, in Tate's stories, it's just emblematic. There's been some other high-profile cases. We've been a lot of folks have asked us about. Well, like what about Matt Hoover? And I think every single thing that the ATF has done in these cases is just atrocious. And there's no way that even Matt Hoover should be sitting in jail. But there are some actors out there that have kind of poked the bear at times. Tate Adamiak was doing absolutely nothing. His goal was to set up a museum someday for some of these things. He was arrested for
the country's not better served with him in jail. It just isn't. That Absolutely. Isn't justice. Certainly isn't public safety. It's a federal agency run amok. I was interviewing Gene Hoffman a few weeks ago. Gene Hoffman's the founder of California Gun Rights Foundation, and he made the point that the gun industry is one of the few industries out there that hasn't embraced their regulatory agency with a bear hug and said, look, this is how this needs to go. And that's kind of what you're describing. Basically saying, hey, look, there are some things that the industry needs and the federal government fills that role, but we shouldn't be living in fear of them and their enforcement arm. They should be doing our bidding. They should be benefiting us, not threatening us, and not waiting to throw us in jail, which is what we're doing now. But I don't know. What do you think about what Gene's statement is on that? Of course, I'm totally paraphrasing and using my own words, but that's how I interpreted what Gene meant.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, if you take, for example, I don't know, the banking industry, the Treasury Department recognizes that we need a smooth functioning financial market in the United States. And so there's a private-public partnership there to ensure that, regulation protects consumers, but it also ensures that the industry runs smoothly. And there's a goal for efficiency. The relationship between both gun owners and industry and the government has always been adversarial. And because it's become a political issue, we're going to have administrations like President Biden, where he just wants to put gun, the zero tolerance policies that just put FFLs out of business, the sort of rogue interpretations of the ATF to overstep their rulemaking authority, to completely disregard the Administrative Procedures Act. That they've been used as a political tool instead of providing a smoother, more efficient market and a better regulatory framework to protect everyone. The goal is just to be a political wedge. And
let's talk about your analogy there with banks, because I think that's an excellent example. It would be like if the banking regulatory organizations and departments in the federal government, it would be like if they made rules and regulations assuming that all bankers are bank robbers. They equate gun owners with violent criminals. And so they make these laws and regulations and rules as if every gun owner is a violent criminal, which doesn't make any sense at all. If you look, going back to the banking industry and how the federal government deals with banking, they're there in large part, to protect banking. They want to make sure that bankers and banking and that industry, like you said, runs smoothly, but is also protected. Now, maybe there's an argument to be made that they're far too protective of bankers, but I would much rather in the gun industry have that discussion, hey, maybe we're too protective of FFLs, rather than seeing FFLs, their lives destroyed over nothing, rather than see hobbyists, insane trained, law-abiding gun owners like Tate thrown in jail and his life destroyed I'd much rather have the conversation of, hey, you know what? Maybe we give them too many chances rather than not enough, because we are not the violent criminals, just like bankers aren't the bank robbers. So I think that's an excellent analogy. I think that's perfectly parallel.
Yeah, I mean, 2008 and the aftermath of that, the federal government pulled out all the stops to bail out all these banks who were arguably behaving badly in that sort of period in the financial crisis. But in the end, we understood that, again, we need from an economic point of view, we need a smooth functioning economy, a smooth functioning financial markets, but yet we don't recognize that the firearms industry is essential to our national defense, and we don't think that there's any value to the American citizenry, being broadly exercising their core constitutional rights. It's a complete breakdown. I view those two things as identical. Forget about the Second Amendment. I mean, these are industries that are heavily tied to our national defense, and I don't understand how we can, travel down the path of policies that criminalize and harass the firearms industry. But
Amen. Okay, so what is there anything we can do, our listeners, people that are watching this, is there something that they can do specifically other than educate themselves, and tell us again how they can read the 20 articles that you were talking about, but other than just bring themselves up to date, what is there anything that we can do to help Tate right now?
yeah, I mean, I would certainly ask if you visit www.freedomfortate.org, you will both find an online petition, which you can sign. We're obviously working out there across the state to gather wet ink signatures, and our goal is to ultimately host a rally for Tate at the end of the summer. But people across the nation can participate in this. Sign the petition. Also, if you've got the means, he does need some donations for his own cause. He's got his appeal coming up in September. And there is a window there where perhaps an appellate court in the Fourth Circuit could fix some of the errors that were made at the district court level. We hope that he'll get justice through the courts. We're kind of asking for both here. Plan A is to try to vindicate himself in his case in court. Plan B is, we seek a pardon from the president. Both of those things can be, done on www.freedomfortate.org. You'll also find all the prior coverage on his story there. I would also, visit www.saf.org and find the investigative journalism tab. Lee Williams' work is all housed there as well. SAF has been working very hard on elevating this case as well. And our organization, www.njfos.org, where you'll find all sorts of stuff about what we're doing in all these regards.
Joe, this is awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on and educating us and bring us up to speed. I think we're going to have you on again real soon. It sounds like you have a lot going on, and then a lot coming down the pike. So we look forward to talking to you more often and hearing all about your successes. Certainly feel for you and the struggles that you go through from a Californian to a New Jerseyan. Keep up the fight, and thank you for everything you and all your activists do out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you too. I really appreciate it.
All right, man. Thanks for joining us.
All right, take care, guys.
All right, we're going to do our curtain call for this week, and this segment is sponsored by Cargo, Cases and Rugged Gear Outfitters in El Cajon. You can find their website at cargostores.com, and they're over there on 423 Broadway in El Cajon, California. There are two enemies of your firearms. Those are rust and the government. The good news, Cargo has your back on both fronts. As a proud sponsor, they're helping us fight to get more Pro 2A officials in office, and their rugged cases help you keep your firearms secure and protected. Built like a tank, Cargo cases are stackable, weatherproof, and ready for anything, whether you're hitting the range or going off-grid. And here's something just for our listeners. When you buy a Cargo case in store at Rugged Gear Outfitters, just mention Gun Owners Radio and you'll get a free desiccant pack to keep your gear bone dry and battle ready. Visit them at 423 Broadway in El Cajon. Great products, great prices, and uncommonly good service. Cases and Rugged Gear Outfitters.
So our curtain call for today? Our current call from today comes from Gainesville, Florida. Back in February of this year, we had a defensive gun use, and this one occurred there in the state of Florida. And we had a woman who was in her home, and she found herself in a circumstance to where she needed to defend herself.
County Sheriff's deputies say the woman who shot and killed a man in Gainesville acted out of self-defense. Deputies say the shooting happened around 3 yesterday afternoon in the Westchester Manor neighborhood. The woman was taken in for questioning, but investigators say she'll not be arrested or face any charges. They say after reviewing evidence and speaking to witnesses, deputies determined the woman was defending herself.
Now, the key thing is that we don't have a whole lot of facts as to what occurred that led to this, but the outcome is important, and the outcome kind of gives us at least enough information to know. But what happened is there was an incident in her home, and she ended up shooting a man who was threatening her life. And what happened is, and this is what's important, and this is something that we all need to be mindful and aware of, if you're not already, is that following the shooting, which occurred, by the way, at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, she was arrested, and she was later found to be justified in self-defense, and she was released. But I think the key thing and the takeaway from this is that even when we're in the right, even when we're justified, there's a process, there's an investigation. Expect the likelihood that should you ever need to pull and use your firearm, whether it's in your own home or out in public, is that the likelihood is that you're likely going to be arrested, right? Expect it. Now, if it doesn't happen, be pleasantly surprised, but expect it. She was found to have been in the right. Like I said, we don't know the details. We don't know if this was an intruder, if this was, someone that maybe resided in the home that was threatening her life. We don't know those facts or those details, but we know the ultimate outcome was that she was justified in taking her shot. And that was what the legal people found in the state of Florida. And just keep that in mind, even when we're justified, even when we do what we need to do to defend ourselves. The likelihood is there's a process. It's not going to be pleasant or comfortable, and know that that's the process. Expect it. That's my 2 cents for today.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. Ready? We have some breaking news. We need some breaking news music.
Do you want me to do it?
Do it. Breaking news music. Nice. I like it. We're very high tech here. Okay, so there's an assemblyman out of San Diego who's a very good friend of San Diego County Gun Owners and Gun Owners Radio. And we had a conversation a few days. Something very interesting happened. If you haven't seen it, there is a podcast called the Sean Ryan Podcast. He interviewed California Governor Gavin Newsom. And one of the things that the Sean Ryan podcast does is he gives each guest a gift. Well, he gave Gavin Newsom a gift, and it led to a conversation with Carl DeMaio that I had, pointing out that I don't know how he's going to receive this gift. I don't know if Gavin Newsom can receive a gift like this because of Gavin Newsom. So, without further ado, Carl DeMaio released this statement today. Gavin Newsom prevented from accepting gun gift by Gavin Newsom. Assemblymember Carl DeMaio requests intervention of federal and state law enforcement to help the governor to comply with own draconian gun laws. California State Assemblyman Carl DeMaio is offering to help Governor Gavin Newsom to avoid criminal prosecution by formally asking U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi and California Attorney General Rob Bonta to provide legal advice to the governor on how to fully comply with the convoluted and draconian gun laws that he has signed into effect. Quote, it would be an absolute shame if Governor Gavin Newsom inadvertently violated one of his anti-gun laws. But the extraordinary hassle he now faces proves not only that he is a hypocrite, but that the draconian gun laws he imposed on regular Californians should be scrapped, DeMaio said. The controversy over the gun gift started when Newsom appeared on the Sean Ryan podcast, and the host gifted the governor a Sig Sauer P365X macro. On the show, Newsom appeared to accept the firearm and even claimed he is, quote, not anti-gun. But DeMaio's office has now learned that off camera, Newsom rejected the gift because of compliance rules and left the firearm behind in Tennessee. Newsom's team has since admitted that the California anti-gun laws are so complicated that they have had to hire legal counsel to conduct a legal review. DeMaio questions whether the governor will ever actually follow through in legally accepting it. DeMaio thinks that Governor Gavin Newsom should get the very best legal advice, which is why DeMaio has sent a letter for Bondi and Bonta urging them to help Gavin Newsom comply with the complicated anti-gun laws he has imposed on California. Quote, first, they'll need a background check, a firearm safety certificate, a DROS submission, a 10-day waiting period, a safe storage affidavit, and don't forget the special taxes, DeMaio quipped. And that's before figuring out how to actually get the gun into California without committing a felony under his own rules, DeMaio added. I'm asking for the full weight of the DOJ to guide the governor through the painful bureaucratic maze he built because, let's be honest, he needs the help to navigate the mess he created, DeMaio said. I love this so much. I am a little bit warm and fuzzy and even a little gooey inside, right where in that place in my chest where people claim their heart to be. It is making me so happy that this guy had to squirm. I got to be honest. I watched most of the interview with Sean Ryan, and I was fairly unhappy with the way Sean Ryan conducted the interview. I thought it was way too soft. Mm-hmm. As much as Sean Ryan, talks a big game about horrible politicians, he had just about the worst on his podcast and was practically schoolgirl giddy with how buddy he was with the governor. Now, I don't think you should be rude or mean or whatever, but man, hold him to account in some way. I mean, at least pretend the guy's, bad, but no, it was like a kind of a bromance love fest. I got to be honest. I thought it was a really horrible interview, but the genius, whether it was either purpose or inadvertent, the genius of gifting him a gun and saying, here, take this back to your state, was perfect, and it really, really, truly shows just how bad these gun laws are. They're stopping these gun laws in California, some in the federal, but mostly these are California gun laws that he can't comply with. It's preventing the governor of the state of California from accepting the gift of a firearm or even figuring out how to navigate this gift into the state of California so that he can have it and protect himself or shoot as a hobby or do whatever he wants. And there's just no case to be made that we are a safer state because the governor can't accept a commonly owned firearm, as a gift and bring it into the state, that it is such a catastrophic failure that he can't even get this firearm into his state. Now, during the interview, Newsom actually joked, TSA is going to, find this and question me or whatever. Mm-hmm. So he clearly was planning on bringing this thing back to the state of California. But again, the plethora of horrible laws preventing the governor from doing something completely normal, like accepting a gift, like owning a firearm, like bringing a firearm back to California, his home, preventing him from doing completely normal things. The whole situation is so asinine. It is such a blow up in Governor Newsom's face. And let's be clear, many of the laws that prevented him from doing something completely normal, like accepting a firearm and bringing it back to the state of California for his legal use, these were laws that he signed into law. They were laws that he has defended and is very vocal about. In fact, he calls them gun safety laws and talks about how successful they are as far as keeping dangerous people from obtaining firearms. So I don't know. I'm just using the transitive property here. Does that make him a dangerous person because it's keeping him from obtaining this firearm? I don't know. I wasn't really good in math. Maybe that's not the wrong property to use. But the point here is This is such a ridiculous joke. It has blown up so hard in Gavin Newsom's face, and I can't thank Carl DeMaio enough for standing up and saying, hey, you know what? This is absolutely an opportunity to show what a charade this is, and what kabuki theater these gun safety laws are. So thank you so much, Carl. I'm glad you did it. I'm glad you uncovered the fact that he wasn't even able to bring this firearm back into the state of California. So thank you for doing that. What do you guys think of that? What do you think of our breaking news?
I love it.
It also made me feel warm and fuzzy inside.
Absolutely. Who didn't feel the warm fuzzies? Absolutely. It's the irony.
Yes.
That's all I got to say. Yeah.
Well, and it's like Newsom's not a dumb guy. So the fact that he had to hire legal counsel because he couldn't even figure it out
Right.
is hilarious to me. I can imagine the conversation between him and his people when he got off of the podcast. They're trying to figure out, like, okay, wait, like, should we run this by legal? What do we need to do? Like, they don't even know their own laws. Cracks me up. I will say I'm a little disappointed that he didn't bring it back with him, because that would have been really funny if he had actually violated his own laws in the process.
Well, and that's true. And I mean, it's fun and funny, and we're having fun, and we should poke at how ridiculous this is. But you're right. I mean, he's the governor of the state of California, and had he just simply followed through with what he was trying to do, live the life he envisioned for himself, which was simply taking a gift back to California, his entire life could have been ruined. He could have been a felon. It could have wound up in jail. He would have ended up being a prohibited person. And this is serious stuff. And we're not even talking about the fact that, hey, this is preventing people, these laws are preventing people from being able to defend themselves. That's one thing. The other thing is, these are bear traps that normal, sane, trained, law-abiding, peaceable people are falling into, and it's ruining their life forever. So I'm glad he got a small taste of his medicine, but I encourage everyone, we can't let this thing end here. We got to talk about this from here till, kingdom come, because this was an important development. Again, thank you, Carl, for doing this.
I wonder, the fact that he had to hire legal counsel, could this be a key point in some lawsuit in the future to where this just shows, because I know that they've made the statement that the laws are simple to understand, right? Could this show the fact that he had to go to this length to show that it's not an attainable, reasonable thing for, that makes it outside the scope of what the average person may be able to afford to do. Therefore, it's an infringement.
Well, and he's got a whole legal team because he's the governor.
Right.
So it wasn't a big deal for him to just say, oh, let's run this by the legal office. But for
He went
normal
outside that,
for normal people, like, I don't have that kind of access. I don't have an attorney on retainer just like hanging out waiting to answer my questions.
You don't have a legal team just hanging out with you?
Well, we have
I don't.
USCCA, right? But,
Well, sure,
but
yeah.
that's not the same thing as a whole legal team, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, awesome. We're going to continue to talk about this. We might talk about this in every show for the rest of 2025. I'm so happy this happened. But rather than talk more about that, we're going to do everyone's favorite segment, Stump My Nephew, with my nephew, Sam, the Gunman. Stump My Nephew, sponsored by Seal One, seal1.com. Go to their website, seal1.com. At Gun Owners Radio, we're proud to partner with Seal One because we believe in the same mission, making gun ownership easier, smarter, and more accessible. Just like we're working to protect your rights and grow the 2A community, Seal One is out there making it easier to clean, protect, and maintain your firearms without the mess and without the stink. So seriously, gun cleaning that actually works and smells good, that's a win. Check them out at seal1.com and experience the difference. We trust them with our gear, and you should too. Before we get Sam on here to wow us with another answer, I actually got an email, and it is a real-life example regarding Seal One. The listener writes in, and he didn't say whether or not I could use his name, so I'm not going to use his name, but he wrote in and said that he had a real-life example for Seal One. His clothes dryer broke. Needed a new idler pulley for the drum belt, I don't know what an idler pulley for the drum belt is, but I have made a mental note that if I ever start another punk band again, I'm going to call it idler pulley for the drum belt. He bought a new one and it was super loud. He grabbed some Seal One and lubed it up for the bearing location, and it is now super quiet. Thanks for the tip from your sponsor, Seal One. Just thought I'd share, as I'd never thought to grab gun cleaning stuff to fix this problem. Now, I can guarantee you that this is a real testimonial, because I don't think any of us know what a idler pulley for the drum belt is. So thank you for the testimony. Thank you for the feedback. And again, Seal One, thank you for the sponsorship. So Sam, how you doing, man?
I'm well. How are you guys?
Fantastic. You don't have a drum belt for the idler pulley, do you?
Is that the question, or?
No, that's not the question. All right. Actually, Alicia, you're going to ask the question today, right?
And I'd like to thank Hank, which is who brings us our question today, for using terms that I can pronounce. So let's go. Let's go. All right. So question comes from Hank from Minocqua, and he asks, sold exclusively through Sears, the J.C. Higgins Model 100 was a private label shotgun manufactured by which well-known Spanish gun maker renowned for producing high-quality side-by-side and doubles?
Ooh, J.C. Higgins Model 100, Sears exclusive, and it was white labeled from a Spanish manufacturer known for making side-by-sides. Ooh, this is a tough one.
Ooh. I thought you had.
I'm trying to think of any Spanish manufacturer, first of all. Like, I know Star, and that's it. I don't know. I don't know any other Spanish manufacturers, so I'm just going to say Star, even though that's probably wrong.
So everybody listening, send in questions related to other Spanish manufacturers, and you'll have him.
You'll get your special reward. This was pretty obscure, I got to tell you.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a good question.
And there is before we answer it, I'm actually a certain Gun Owners Radio co-host is actually picking up a J.C. Higgins Model 100. I finally, I had before we answer, I had my dad's beautiful Winchester 1200 12 gauge, and it's pump action, beautiful shotgun. I loved it very, very much. And that's what I would use to shoot sporting clays or whatever. And it had this big old long, like 28-inch barrel with a full choke. I ended up getting a Model 1300 barrel so that it had a variable choke. But I always went back to that big, long, full choke. I really, really liked it. I gave it to Sam happily. I wanted him to have it because it's my father's, but it's his grandfather's. I love the shotgun, but I've been, for a couple of years now, I've been trying to figure out a new, which way am I going to go now? I need a shotgun for sporting clays. So what am I going to do? I didn't want to go with the usual, you go out there, you kind of see a lot of the usual guns out there. So this is what I'm going with. It's a side-by-side. It's 12 gauge, side-by-side, 28-inch barrel. I don't think it has variable chokes. I haven't picked it up yet. No, it doesn't. It does not have variable chokes. It's a single trigger side-by-side. I didn't want two triggers. And there's no exposed hammers. I didn't want exposed hammers. So it's perfect. So if you see me out there shooting sporting clays, just know that if I miss one, you can blame it on this Sears relic of a shotgun that I have that I can't wait to shoot. I'm actually really, really stoked about it. I think it's kind of cool. So anyway, that's the story.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, what a
that
coincidence,
Hank
right?
and Mike both have J.C. Higgins Model 100s on the brain.
You're right.
All
and we
right.
both just happen to be in Minocqua right now. Okay, so go ahead. What is which, by the way, in all full disclosure, Hank, my dad, Sam's grandfather, well familiar with J.C. Higgins. We absolutely knew who they were. He knew that they were sold through Sears. Totally understood, was well familiar with this model. It's right in his wheelhouse. So it was a good question for him to submit. So Sam, your grandfather stumped you. Alicia, what is the answer?
So it's the oh gosh, here I was saying that I could pronounce it's not even a hard thing. I'm just not sure if it's pronounced using. I got to be honest, Sam. I hadn't heard of this company either. AYA. which stands
So I
for
think that it
is
stands.
AIA?
I'm sorry. I think that what they're saying is AEA.
E,
Like,
correct.
yeah,
Spanish.
Y
Right,
is
correct.
and. So AEA.
Aguirre and Aranzabal.
Yeah.
I think that was pretty good. That was pretty close.
Butchered. Sorry.
I can't roll my R's, so I'm not even going to try
I
it
can't.
because it's supposed to have the
Yeah, I
double R roll thing. I can't do that.
Took 8 years of Spanish.
Okay.
Never got it.
So last week we had a lot of great feedback where we talked more in depth to Alicia and to Dakota about their background and what brought them into the shooting world and what they do and all that other good stuff. It was really, really great feedback. I wanted to do something similar here with Sam. Sam, not only answers questions correctly about gun trivia, and he does
and incorrectly today.
incorrectly. He also does some writing for us, but that's not it. He has an amazing resume and some amazing interests and accomplishments. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit more today. So Sam, what got you into writing? All the writing that you do, what got you into that?
It's sort of a funny question. If you had asked me, say, 10 years ago when I was in high school, if I could imagine myself as a writer by trade, I would say, like, not in a million years. I sort of fell into it almost by accident, and I don't want to bore you and the audience with, well, I don't mind boring you, but I don't want to bore the audience with the whole long story. But basically, Plan A didn't work out, and Plan B didn't really work out. And so I'm on, I guess, Plan C or D as a writer and a researcher and an editor, which are all sort of, well, you can't really have a three-sided coin, I guess, but they're all facets of the same type of work. They're all separate but related skill sets that I use in what I do. And people ask me often, because people like to talk about, are college degrees useful? Are they not useful? What's a useful degree versus a useless degree? So people ask me, what did you get your degree in? Well, mine was international affairs. Do you use that? Because people go, oh, you're not working for the State Department or for an NGO or whatever. And I say, well, I don't use the information I learned necessarily in my degree. I use some of it, but I don't use most of the information I learned in my degree for my current job. But I use the skills I practiced in that type of a degree program every day.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Now, a lot of the writing that you do is for Leatherneck Magazine. And Leatherneck Magazine, the way I describe Leatherneck Magazine is it's like the trade magazine for the Marine Corps. It's been around for forever. And it's an amazing and well-respected national magazine that, of course, mostly applies, and is read by Marines. And you do a lot of the writing
around here somewhere.
Oh, you're looking for a copy? So it's an amazing magazine, and you do a lot of the writing for Leatherneck Magazine. So talk to us about that? We'll display a copy. Maybe we'll get that in post. There you go, Leatherneck Magazine.
Yeah, here's the July 2025 issue of Leatherneck, if you can see it. On the picture we have, on the cover we have an image of Marines riding a landing craft to one of the many Pacific battles they fought in World War II. Leatherneck is the magazine of the Marines. That's its byline. And what I do for them is I guess you could call me sort of a beat reporter. I work as a freelancer, which is very common in the print media industry. And I'm sort of their pocket beat reporter whenever they need someone to cover anything to do with technology or with small arms, because those are kind of specialized areas, and many people who have trained for years or decades as journalists, although they're extremely good at writing and reporting, they might lack the specific technical background to be able to cover those topics. So I do things like I've written articles before about notable small arms that Marines have carried into battle. over the centuries. Like I've written about the M1, for example. I've written about the M16, especially early on in Vietnam when it was having some issues. I've written about the M9, actually, a pistol that has a lot more interesting history than I would have thought going into it. And I also cover things like the Office of Naval Research and like the annual Modern Day Marine Expo, which is a trade show heavily focused on emerging warfighting technology. And
you were just there. You were just at the
I was.
Marine Expo, right?
Yeah.
Talk about that. What happened at the Modern Marine Expo? How did that go?
Modern Day Marine is always a lot of fun. It's also exhausting because I'm on my feet, turned on, working at full capacity for 3 solid days in DC, and I was reporting on sort of what's the latest and greatest technology that's right over the horizon that will be coming to, in this case, the Marine Corps, but more broadly, because it's a Marine Corps publication, but more broadly, the U.S. military in the very near future. So if you want to look at it in sort of a different way from a historical perspective, what will the people like me be researching 50 or 100 years from now?
So what was the most interesting you saw at the Modern Marine Expo? What was an interesting conversation you had or an interesting thing that you saw there?
There's a lot of high-tech training stuff coming out, various systems that, like if you had gone to the government 30 or 40 years ago and offered this type of capability, they would have paid tens of millions of dollars for one example, but now are basically akin to video games, some of them even using commercial off-the-shelf controller hardware designed to allow people to train as vehicle crewmen, as particularly drivers and gunners, without actually having to get into the vehicle and use the fuel and put miles on the engine and go out into a field and go through a driving course and all that stuff. So there's a lot of cool training equipment that's coming out that most of us in the civilian world will never get to see. So it's always cool to take a look at that.
And what's your favorite piece that you've ever written? What piece have you written for Leatherneck or any of the writing that you've done? What's your favorite piece that really gives you a lot of pride and you reference a lot and you feel like it's probably your best work or most interesting work yet?
My favorite feature article I ever wrote was actually the first one of mine that was published, and that was on the history of the phonetic alphabet, which sounds dead boring, but it was actually a very interesting research process, and I uncovered a lot of really cool information that I just never would have even occurred to me, all about the process of why we say Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, et cetera, instead of Abel, Baker. It was a long and very meticulous design process that allowed some of the best linguists in the world to come to the current phonetic alphabet that's standardized by the International Civil Aviation Organization and by NATO that we all use today.
Besides all of your freelance work and writing, what are other things that people might want to know about you? What do you like doing? What are your hobbies?
Well, man, what are hobbies? Do people do things other than work? No, all the interesting, I guess, whatever things anyone would want to know about me, I guess anyone who listens to the show regularly would already know. I am a writer and a researcher, and I like to shoot, and I'm a licensed pilot. That's about it. Really not much more to say.
That's pretty
Well,
fun.
the licensed pilot part is huge.
Yeah.
That's a big, the licensed pilot part is huge. You've been flying for how long have you been actually flying in a small plane and piloting it? And I mean, how many hours do you have? Talk a little bit about that, because it's really an amazing accomplishment.
Well, I come from a family of pilots. My father and his father before him, and my maternal grandfather on the other side. So I was extremely fortunate to be able to grow up with my dad being a flight instructor and being able to teach me how to fly, which I was able to do before I had my driver's license. which I think is kind of funny. But it's fun. It's an enjoyable thing to do, but it's something that requires a lot of intense focus. The thing about flying is people look at it and they think that it must be really hard to, I don't know, keep the airplane pointed straight and level or to maneuver it or whatever. That's the easy part. The difficult part is all of the paperwork and the procedures involved.
Interesting.
So I think anyone can, after a few hours sitting behind a flight simulator, which in my opinion is more difficult to use than an actual airplane, anyone can do climbs, turns, descents, straight and level flight in an airplane, but you have to study a lot, pretty intensively, to be able to know all of the regulations around what you're trying to do. And unlike in many other facets of life, these regulations weren't made up by someone who just wants to keep themselves in a bureaucratic job or to make ordinary people's lives more difficult. All the aviation regulations are written in blood. Everything in that book called FAR AIM, everything in that book is there because someone did something stupid and died. Mm-hmm. So that part does require a lot of study. The actual stick and rudder part of flying is pretty easy, in my opinion.
Pre-flight checklists, pretty long.
They save lives.
Yeah.
Back to Leatherneck, I have a question for you.
Sure. Being
that Leatherneck is a marine magazine, I think the most logical question could be, is it written in crayon? That's all I got.
Say again.
Oh, so Leatherneck, when you write, I assume you write on your computer?
Yes,
or
mostly.
Crayon.
Oh,
how do we do this?
No, I've never been in the Marine Corps. I do my reporting and some of my drafts with a pen and a notebook, and then I type stuff into a computer.
That's awesome. All right, well, cool, Sam. What is the best, if somebody's interested in seeing your work or checking out Leatherneck, where do they go? How do they find out more about Leatherneck Magazine and the work that you do there and the work that they do?
Leatherneck Magazine is a print magazine, and it's also available digitally. You can go to, from memory, mca-marines.org. And now let me open up a tab and make sure that's right. mca-marines.org. All members of the Marine Corps Association are eligible to receive the magazine in hard copy, and all active duty Marines can get an online edition for free. Now, granted, I've said I'm a freelancer, so I have many different clients, but Leatherneck is by far my favorite to work with, and they are the one that is most sort of outward facing. So if you want to read my stuff instead of just reading stuff that I've edited, that's the way to do it. So I don't know why anyone would be interested in me as the person. My job is to tell the story. So if you're interested in military technology and small arms, which if you're listening to Gun Owners Radio, I'm assuming you're interested in the second part. And if you live in Southern California, there's a decent chance you have a Marine Corps connection. Then that's how you do it.
Awesome. Great job. Sam, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for answering all the questions that you answer and all the writing that you do. And thank you so much, man. Awesome job. And we'll see you. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for having me on. As always, I hope I wasn't too boring this time talking about myself. And I'd like to apologize to you and everyone else that I've been lackadaisical about the blog posts recently, but weekly blog posts will be coming back. I have one in the works. The next one I have a few in the works. The next one will be about a handful of influential firearms you've never heard of.
So you're gonna do one on, yeah, like your uncle's new shotgun.
I said influential.
All right. Okay, cool, man. All right. I will talk to you soon. Thank you, Sam.
Thanks for having me on.
You know what we should have asked him, guys?
Hmm.
He said he does articles on small arms. There's absolutely, we just missed an opportunity to make a Tyrannosaurus Rex joke. Enormously disappointed in all of us on that. So,
Bummer.
oh well. Okay, so here's what we're going to move to. We're going to move to the Shoot You Straight segment. No bull, just straight shooting on today's hottest gun and political topics. It's time for the Straight Shooter segment. I've got a couple things to talk about, but right off the bat, something very interesting is of course, we came out with endorsements. San Diego County Gun Owners, that is, came out with a list of endorsements last week that included some state, but a lot of local city folks, around the county of San Diego. But there is a campaign that's really just one of the it's given us a lot of trouble. It's given us a lot of heartache. It's given us a lot of trouble. And I got to tell you, it's so unusual. It's Senate District 40. Christy Bruce Lane is our candidate. We've endorsed her in the past. She's a fantastic supporter of San Diego County Gun Owners, of the Second Amendment. But one of the reasons we went ahead and endorsed fairly early in this race is that she's running against a guy named Ed Musgrove. Ed Musgrove is also a Republican. So he kind of gets this automatic, like, oh, he must be pro-Second Amendment, that frankly, a lot of candidates don't deserve that. That doesn't mean you're pro-Second Amendment because you're a Republican. And even if just because you say you're pro-Second Amendment, that doesn't mean you're pro-Second Amendment. I mean, Obama said he was pro-Second Amendment. Hillary Clinton said she was pro-Second Amendment. And recently, Governor Newsom says he's pro-Second Amendment. That's not enough. And I got to tell you, I have tried hard to, going in to like Ed Musgrove as a candidate. And I'm hoping that we can get him to a point where maybe we can support him in the future. But he keeps messing up. He keeps working against that goal. I don't want to make him, persona non grata, but he keeps doing bonehead things. And again, Christy Bruce Lane is a fantastic candidate. She has earned our support. She has absolutely earned our endorsement. Where Ed is taking steps in the wrong direction, we would love to have a relationship with him in the future and possibly endorse him in future elections, but not this one. So what am I talking about specifically? Well, recently, Ed was giving a talk, and he claimed to have CRPA's endorsement, the California Rifle and Pistol Association. He does not have their endorsement. And just to break it down, I want to be clear that there is CRPA and then there is CRPA PAC, which stands for Political Action Committee. CRPA is the main organization. CRPA PAC is a separate organization, but it's still CRPA, and it's their political arm. They're the ones that actually do the endorsements. CRPA, they do ratings like A through F that we're all familiar. At A through F rating does not indicate that you are or are not endorsed. That is a whole different thing. An endorsement is a very specific term. So I want to show the video of Ed at this talk, and I want you to see for yourself what he claimed. So go ahead and play the video.
Can you tell me how you stand on 2A?
Second Amendment?
Yeah.
It's in our Constitution, no doubt. Second Amendment rights across the board. Okay?
But why are you endorsed by the San Diego Gun Owners and the California Pistol and Rifle? Pistol and Rifle. California Pistol and
The
Rifle.
CRPA?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Okay, that's my question.
Yes, sir.
What was the answer to that?
The CRPA, yes, they have. Yeah, California Rifle and Pistol Association. They have endorsed my opponent.
Okay, let's pause. So that's the video that he clearly stated multiple times. I'm endorsed by CRPA. He is not endorsed by CRPA. CRPA endorsements come from CRPA PAC. They have not released endorsements yet at all for anybody. CRPA has listed a number of ratings as far as A through F, And Christy Bruce Lane was also rated. He is rated, but that is a rating, not an endorsement. His rating came from submitting a questionnaire. Anyone can say anything on a questionnaire, but it's still a good guidance tool for knowing at least the general direction of where someone wants you to believe they're going. But the reality is he is not endorsed. Now, one of two things is happening here. It's either incompetence or malfeasance. He's either trying to trick you, or he is unable to figure out how this all works. Now, he's already in office. It's not like he's brand new to politics. He is a city council member up in San Marcos. He knows what an endorsement is. He knows what an endorsement means. He also knows that if you don't tell the truth about an endorsement, that is a big no-no in the political world. So he either didn't bother to take the time to figure out whether or not his rating also is an endorsement, which it is not, or he is trying to fool the people that he was talking to and didn't know there was a camera rolling. None of that is okay. And frankly, I've seen in the past organizations like the two different parties, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, I've seen them completely throw out a person who lies about or tries to mislead on endorsements. In the past, that has been a career killer. It has been a campaign killer. Now, CRPA hasn't endorsed, but they have shown their renewed interest in backing Christy Bruce Lane. They've put that in writing, and I want to show that up on the screen. Can we show that real quick? It's an email from Rick Travis to Christy Bruce Lane, reaffirming that they fully intend to continue to support Christy Bruce Lane, which makes sense. She's the pro-Second Amendment candidate with the pro-Second Amendment track record in that race. But Ed Musgrove is trying to pull the wool over on everybody's eyes and try to make you think that he is a pro-Second Amendment. When we have talked about it in the past, we've written about it, his questionnaire, his answers to the questionnaire, his actions in the past tell a different story. So again, I got to tell you, I'm trying to like this guy. I'm trying to get to a point where, I'm not, it doesn't behoove us to create enemies, but we're not the ones creating the enemy here. He is the one that is forcing us to call him out on, some fairly basic truth telling when it comes to politics. So vote for Christy Bruce Lane. Don't vote for Ed Musgrove. I'm sorry it came to this, but this is how it is. And Ed, you got to do better, man. You just have to do better. I don't think this is going to be the race for you. You're not going to win. I think that you should try again and just do better in the future. So there you go. Ed Musgrove, not endorsed by CRPA or, to my knowledge, any gun organization. San Diego County Gun Owners has endorsed Christy Bruce Lane.
Truth hurts. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, the truth does hurt. That's why he's not telling it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
To me, watching that clip, it did appear like he was just flustered and maybe he wasn't ready to have a discussion on Second Amendment stuff, because it almost sounded like he was trying to decide in the moment, like, am I going to lie or not? Like, he was, you know what I mean? Like, he was kind of stumbling over, when someone's deciding between, like, am I going to tell the truth or tell a lie? It felt like that to me, where he was kind of like, do I want to get into this right now? So I thought that was interesting.
I like how he lowered
Well, I
his
think
voice.
you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Go, Mike.
I was going to say, I think you're right. And by the way, that audience was a very heavy Republican audience. So, telling them that you've lost the Second Amendment endorsement in San Diego and that you're not actually endorsed by a state organization, that's not a comfortable conversation in general to have with a group of Republican activists. So I'm positive, Dakota, that's exactly what he was doing.
What's so interesting to me is that he could have taken that opportunity to actually give that audience what they wanted. He could have said, yes, you're right. Obviously, you've done your research. I haven't been endorsed yet. I'm working with them to hopefully be endorsed in the future. I've done the questionnaire. What, like, he could have elaborated a little bit on the process, or he could have said, I'm not sure who they're going to endorse, but here's my stance on Second Amendment policy. Here's what I care about in the Second Amendment discussion. But instead, I mean, that lady who asked the question, I'm pretty positive she knew he wasn't endorsed. That's why she was asking. Like it seemed to me like she knew, she had done her research and was like, I wonder why this guy's not endorsed, So I thought he missed a very good opportunity to talk about what he actually thinks about Second Amendment policy in a room full of people who are interested in that topic.
Nailed it. What do you got, Alicia? I interrupted you.
I was just going to make a comment. I absolutely agree with everything you both have said. I was just going to make a comment how I love, my favorite part was the end when he lowered his voice to give the answer about how Sandy County gun owners had endorsed his opponent. And you can tell
completely
the tone
different
of his
tone.
voice told all that he was feeling. So.
We met with him. We tried. It's just, I would put our vetting process up against any organization, locally, statewide, or maybe even nationally. I got to tell you, Sandy County gun owners, we do an excellent job of vetting people out. So many liars have come before us, and felt the wrath. So anyway, there you go. Vote for Christy Bruce Lane. Okay, next subject I wanted to talk about is something that I've talked about personally a lot. We've talked about it on the air a lot. It's something that I truly believe is it's important to talk about. It's an important issue that's happening right now. Now, I get to tell you, there are strengths and weaknesses all across the political spectrum, the left and right, the up, the down, the center. There are strengths and weaknesses in Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Greens, whatever. However, right now, the left side of the political spectrum, an important problem that they have to deal with is political violence coming from the left. And there is just no question that the political violence coming from the left is unparalleled. They support it far more than any other piece of the political spectrum. They commit it far more than any other piece of the political spectrum. And the severity of it, not just the frequency, but the severity of it, is far worse than any other piece of the political spectrum. And political violence is something that is so enormously unacceptable. This isn't just, hey, room for improvement. This is so enormously unacceptable to, the American Republic, to the way our Constitution and our politics works. It has to change, and it has to change now. There is a local example that just happened. There's an article on the California Globe by Garvin Walsh. Garvin Walsh is actually a member of San Diego County Gun Owners, and an excellent all-around guy. He does a fantastic job. His article, Political Motives Suspected in Firebombing of Oceanside Home and Cars. He writes, it's almost a daily thing for people to yell F Trump or make obscene gestures when they drive by. An Oceanside family and their neighbors had their early morning sleep shattered by fire and chaos on Sunday, July 13th, just last week. At approximately 2:30 a.m., longtime resident Rick Felkins and his family awoke to find two of their vehicles engulfed in flames in their driveway. Felkins' wife, adult son, and two young grandchildren were also in the home at the time. One of the children, who is recovering from a broken femur and confined to a full leg cast, had to be evacuated in what was described as, quote, a difficult and painful maneuver. The situation was especially dangerous because a third vehicle with a full tank of gasoline was parked immediately adjacent to the two burning vehicles. Additional flammable materials, including gasoline containers, were stored in the home's attached garage. Thanks to the swift response of the Oceanside Fire Department, the fire was contained before it could spread to the residents. No injuries were reported. Two vehicles, a truck and an SUV, were destroyed, with two others sustaining less severe damage. So that's what happened. But the question is, well, gosh, why do you think this could possibly be, first off, deliberate, and second, politically motivated? Well, he goes on to write that Felkins believes the fire was deliberately set. While the Oceanside Fire Department has not yet released its official report, Felkins said authorities at the scene indicated that physical evidence suggested in the incendiary device containing an accelerant had been placed between the two cars. In other words, Felkins said, it's a firebomb. A lifelong Oceanside resident, Felkins suspected the attack was politically motivated. And this is the key point that we want to talk about. He stated that while he is not involved in any personal disputes or illegal activity, he has been outspoken about his political views. His home, located on a corner lot visible from heavily traveled roads, has frequently displayed conservative-themed signs and flags. Just before the incident, a quote, "Thank you, Elon Musk" flag was posted in his yard. In the past, he has displayed pro-Trump signs and the Gadsden flag, which is of course, the "Don't Tread on Me" flag, some of which he said were recently stolen during the night. So what we have here is a situation, we've all seen these houses where they're not afraid to display flags and signs and whatever and vote for this person or, whatever political message. So he's one of these homes. He happens to be particularly visible because he's on a corner and it's a road that's heavily accessed and heavily traveled. So he has these clearly, right of center messages about people that the left and the left media frequently describes as being tyrants, being, Nazis and, being horrible right wing, dictators. And he's received abuse in the past. They've yelled things at him. They've thrown things at him in the house. They've stolen things from him. And now there appears to be a firebomb that has destroyed both of his vehicles and thankfully was stopped before it destroyed his house and his family. Now, this is enormously unacceptable. Now, I know we're maybe jumping to a little bit of a conclusion here before the final investigation has been released, but the point that left of center political violence is unacceptable remains. That point is still valid. And this is, I believe, a strong example of this not being in a land, far away or a neighborhood you've never heard of. No, this is right here in San Diego County in Oceanside. And it happened to a fellow San Diegan just like us. I think it's completely unacceptable. It should be investigated. This man should be protected. And if they find the person that committed this, they should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. So what do you guys think?
I think it's unfortunate that we live with a level of fear about being able to show our support, about being able to show our support, right? We shouldn't be fearful, but the reality is, I know I don't display things for this very reason, and it's unfortunate that I have to live that way.
Yeah, I think everybody on all sides of the political spectrum should feel safe and confident being able to discuss their political views in public, to be able to display signs or flags or whatever without fear of retaliation or fear of violence. I think, sometimes we hear something like some cars were destroyed and we think, well, it's, property damage. This is so much worse than that because the family was home. These were vehicles in a driveway close to a garage. The residence could have started on fire. People could have literally lost their lives over this. The vehicle, I think they said that there was gas cans in the garage, and so there could have been an explosion, right? Like it's so much worse than some vandalism or signs being stolen out of somebody's front yard, which happened in my neighborhood near election time. This is actual violence that could have ended people's lives, and I think it's really unfortunate that it's coming from the political side that says things like the way that Republicans are talking is violence. Words are not violence. This is actual violence. Like, we have example after example of people doing things that are not just illegal but are dangerous, that are hurting people's, pocketbooks, hurting their lives. And I think it's scary that we live in a time where it's a real hard conversation to talk to your friends about who you voted for. It shouldn't be that way. We should all be able to have civil discourse about who we support for offices like presidency, who we support, what policies we support, and how we feel about things like the Second Amendment and all of that. And it's so sad and unfortunate to me that we're living in a time of, the history of the United States where people are being silenced, where people are in fear of talking about, who they voted for, or losing friendships, losing family members, and also, the potential of political violence.
Without question, this has to be a litmus test when it comes to Democratic candidates. They have to be held accountable and be asked, hey, what are you going to do to tamp down the extremist rhetoric, to tamp down the support or end the support for violence? What are you going to do to make sure that your side of the political spectrum stops doing this ridiculous violence? Maybe there are litmus tests for Republicans as well. We're not talking about that right now. What we're talking about is the absolute, very obvious messaging that is coming from the left side of the political spectrum, especially Democrats, in the media, where basically violence is okay. That, this extremism name calling of candidates that you disagree with or elected officials that you disagree with, it's not okay anymore. It's leading to real, true violence. People are getting hurt. The potential for people to get hurt even worse or die is real, and it's right here in our backyard. And I got to tell you, you got to lay it right at the feet of Democrats, Democrat leadership, the party leadership. This is their problem. There may be other problems. There may be other problems with other organizations and other political parties. Be happy to talk about that. But right now, this problem is theirs. They own it. They started it. And we have to do meaningful activities to make sure that, hey, this ends. And this ends right now.
So this absolutely, and this occurred, this article in particular, with this particular set of vehicles burned, July 13th. So we're just barely a week into this investigation. I sure hope that when or if there's a finding or a conclusion, that there are politicians, there are people that are in this portion, under this jurisdiction, that step up and say, this is not okay. Like, this is an opportunity for them to do the right thing. This is an opportunity for them to take this by hold it, take it by the feet, and to make it into a change, right? And so I sure hope that they do. And I'm curious to see. And I will tell you, this particular incident, looking at this photograph, it wasn't just the home of the persons with the vehicles that was at risk. This, the neighbor's little wooden fence was so close to this vehicle, and I can't tell. I believe it might have even been damaged. There was potentially many homes, not just the homeowner's home of the vehicles, but the neighbors and the whole neighborhood was at risk. This is a problem.
This could have been a legitimate tragedy that would have been all over the media.
Yep.
But I think because it was contained, because the fire department came so quick and put the fire out, like, not a lot of people have even heard that this happened. California Globe is, popular, but it's not MSNBC, it's not CNN, it's not Fox News, it's not any of the major media outlets, right? So again, I know I harp on media a lot. I feel like almost every topic I bring it back to media, but it's so unfortunate that we can't just have even-handed coverage of everything that's happening in our communities. It's not, it's not sharing both sides. It's only sharing the side that kind of follows the narrative that they want to share, and this does not fit that narrative. Just like, you know, nobody had really heard about the Michigan church shooting that was stopped because it did not fit the narrative. They're only going to talk about the tragedies that are done by one political side. And that's super unfortunate, and it's not fair to the American people, and it's not fair to those of us who are putting money in their pocket and keeping them in business by clicking on their articles. So support media that's doing it well, right? Support California Globe. Go check out their news article. Give them a click.
And support Gun Owners Radio, because we're talking about it.
Yeah.
But mostly,
because we get people
there you
elected.
But mostly, you know, hold people accountable. Hold people accountable. This is just not acceptable. Okay, that is your show for the week. I want to thank everybody. Thank you, Rich, for being an awesome producer. Thank you, Sam, for coming on. Thank you, Joe, for letting us interview you. And of course, thank you, Alicia and Dakota, for being so awesome and making such a great show. We want to tell you about the Pew Pew Crew, Gun Owners Radio's membership program. Let's be honest. You've yelled at your TV during a gun debate. Maybe you've even thrown a shoe. Well, now you can do something way more productive and way less weird. Join the Pew Pew Crew. It's like a VIP lounge for people who know the difference between cover and concealment and aren't afraid to correct the guy at the range. You'll get exclusive content, member-only perks, and the satisfying feeling of supporting the one show that actually fights for your gun rights and makes you laugh while doing it, we hope. So stop rage scrolling and do something useful. Hit that join button on YouTube and become a proud member of the Pew Pew Crew. Thank you, guys. See you next week. Click, join, volunteer, do all the stuff you got to do. Can't do it alone. We need your help. It's easy. It's fun. We make activism easy. See you guys next week. Gun Owners Radio. We make activism easy.